What's up, everyone? I'm Daniel. I go by they, them, or he, him pronouns, and I identify as gender nonconforming, genderqueer, or gender fluid. In this video, I'm going to talk about the top 6 things that you might be thinking about or might be worried about before and during traveling as a trans person. Keeping in mind that this video is specifically talking about the experience of a trans masculine presenting person. So I can't speak to the experience of a trans feminine presenting person. Okay, let's talk about those top 6 things. So the first thing I was worried about, and the first thing that came into my mind while traveling, was hormones. How was I gonna travel with testosterone? Traveling with hormones is definitely a bit of an anxiety because it's an anxiety. That's it. I don't know. Before leaving the States, I explained to my doctor that I would be taking a trip long term, so for the duration of about 8 months to a year, and he was able to prescribe me with 8 months worth of testosterone. I can't say that all doctors will do that, but if you're planning long-term travel, it's worth a shot to just ask. Every single week that I have to do my shot, I'm always able to find a private space to do so. So if you're worried about that, because you're living in hostels, right? I'm sharing space with multiple other people at a time. So if you're worried about that, don't be, because usually the bathrooms have a private space, the shower stall is a private space, so there's always generally a place to do your shot. I'm gonna go into a video maybe a little bit later on about how I packed all my testosterone and all my supplies for testosterone and how I give myself my shots on a weekly basis here. Number 2 was bathrooms. Bathrooms. Imagine having to worry about bathrooms. So, I personally didn't bring a packer or an STP. I didn't pack back home very often, so I figured I wouldn't bring one. Even without an STP, I haven't had many issues with the bathroom. Generally speaking, there's a stall that locks, so you always have a space to go. There was maybe 1 time or 2 times that there was only an open toilet and urinals, or the bathroom door itself didn't lock. I encountered those things in the States as well, and I've encountered those things anywhere that I've been, so it's not something that is an exclusive issue to traveling as a trans person or traveling as a whole. I think that's an issue everywhere. So why can't I figure this camera out? Number 3 was the scars on my chest. Obviously I have had top surgery, so I don't bind anymore. I can't speak to the experience of how it would be traveling with a binder. That's just not something that's been part of my experience, so I don't want to give any false information. But when it does come to my scars, I have definitely been questioned a couple times. What happened there? Why do you have those scars? What's on your chest? Holy shit, look at your chest. That one hasn't happened. Far exaggeration, but even still, the response is different every time. Sometimes if I don't feel like talking about it or I'm not comfortable in the environment, I'll just simply say, yeah, I had surgery. I don't really want to talk about it. So you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't owe them your life story. So it's really up to you and your comfort. None of the questions that I've gotten have been with malintent. No one seems to be malicious or anything in that regard, but that doesn't mean that you're comfortable with it. So it's totally up to you what you want to share and with whom you want to share that. Okay. My 4th fear, and the 4th thing that's been on my radar, is being misgendered and my pronouns. I've been called he, him pretty much across the board. I understand that I'm working within the confines of language barriers, and that's been okay because going by he, him pronouns is generally okay for me. Using they, them pronouns is a very difficult concept for some people, and I have had a few conversations about it, with a number of different people, and while they are very open to the idea of it, in actual practice it's hard because English is not a lot of people's first language out here. So just working within the confines of that language barrier, I haven't found it to be too much of an issue. I've been called she once or twice, and as soon as I corrected them, as soon as I said it's actually he, him, they immediately corrected themselves and it didn't happen again. Number 5 was having these tough conversations and coming out as trans to people and maybe being met with resistance. I knew there was going to be a language barrier. I knew that the world at large was not part of the queer bubble that I was definitely a part of in San Diego. And I knew that I would be traveling with a lot of cisgendered people that didn't really know anything about trans people. And I don't know how people are going to react. I never know. I don't know in the States when I tell people. I don't know here when I tell people. That being said, I have had a lot of conversations, and I have been met with a lot of open-mindedness. I think it takes a certain amount of willingness to be open to new experiences, new ideas, and new ways of living in order to travel as a whole, especially long-term travel. There have been a few people a bit resistant, and I think it comes from confusion and misinformation. The more I have talked to those people and kind of broken down those walls and those barriers, it's definitely dissolved, and they are a little bit more open to it. So I haven't been met with hate by any means. I haven't been met with violence or anything like that, but it's just some conversations are a little bit easier than others. And then number 6 was dealing with my feelings of dysphoria. If I felt those feelings of isolation that for me come along with dysphoria, what was I gonna do? So I will definitely be making another video about dysphoria, just because there's a lot to be said about it. Being mostly around cisgendered and heterosexual people can be isolating as a queer person, and especially as a trans person. The number one tip that I can really give you is set up a support system prior to leaving. If you can set up a support system, you will have the resources when you're going through it. So even if you're traveling alone, if you just tell 4 people, 2 people, whatever, 1 person back home, like, hey, when I do experience dysphoria, when I feel really lonely, when I feel X, Y, and Z, can I call you? Can I text you? Can I reach out to you? And will you just help affirm me, affirm my existence, and affirm my value? That's going to be the most helpful tip that I can give you, because if you set yourself up for success in that way, when you experience that dysphoria, if that is part of your journey, you have the resources, you have the tools to be able to handle that. And I think that's honestly one of the best things you could do for yourself, even if you're not traveling. Just existing as a trans person that does experience dysphoria, if you have resources set up and you have people set up in your life that are able to support you in the specific way that you need support in those moments, it can be completely changed. It could change everything. So please do that if you don't already have that in your life, because it is one of the most helpful things that's going to be there for you. And that's pretty much it. Those are the things that I was most worried about before leaving for my trip, and maybe some of the things that have been on your mind if you've been thinking about traveling as a trans person. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to subscribe down below. If you have any questions or comments about any of the things I talked about, please feel free to reach out, message me on Instagram, or send me an email. I'll have the email link down below. And then, yeah, hit those buttons, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time in the next video.